Hey, this is Brian with worshiptutorials.com. This is another video in our frequently asked questions series where we answer your questions. And today I'm going to cover why I started worship tutorials in the first place. What about like worship leaders or Christian artists playing in secular venues like bars? That's a great question. And finally, I've had a couple questions about the pickup that I have in my acoustic guitar. So first, I received an email from Joshua Baker. Josh, thank you for reaching out to me. And he asked me, what led you to start worship tutorials in the first place? That is a great question. And, in my sort of professional history as a worship leader or in ministry, actually, I was a youth pastor for a while. And actually, before all that, I was a chemistry major in college in biology, and I worked in science for a long time. This is kind of random, but here you go. So I worked in science, I worked in research. We did lupus research in the lab I worked in, and I thought I wanted to go on to graduate school or be a doctor. That's where I met my wife. She works in research as well. That was back in Oklahoma. And I realized that, science wasn't for me, though I do enjoy science. And actually, I love to talk about science and faith together. But that wasn't for me. So I started volunteering in a church, and I volunteered in the youth ministry, and I loved it. And I started to think, I think I'd rather work in ministry than do science. So eventually that position became open and I applied for it, which is a great tip. If you want to be maybe vocationally involved in ministry, I think a great way to do it, obviously you can go to school and that route, but if you just volunteer and really plug in at a church, if you become extremely valuable to that church, chances are they may want to hire you. That's kind of what happened to me. So I worked as a youth pastor in Oklahoma for a few years, and I started leading worship with the youth band. And then my wife and I moved out here to North Carolina, where she got a job and doing research. And so I began to lead worship. So this was, a while back. So I started leading worship at churches here in North Carolina, and a couple churches, and both of them very small. The church I was at back in Oklahoma was, about 150 people, and it was a more traditional church. The two churches that I led worship at here in North Carolina were about, one was about 30 to 50 people in average attendance, and the other was around maybe 75 to 100. So small churches, and pretty much indicative of what most churches in America are. The average church size is, around 70-ish in America. And then now for the past 3 years, I've led worship at a much larger church, New Hope Church, and it's a multi-site church. I'm a campus worship leader, and I lead worship in our Garner campus, and we have anywhere from 500 to 600 people in average weekly attendance currently, and it's been going up steadily, so that's good. But the church as a whole is somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 depending on the weekend across all the campuses, so a much larger church. But most of my professional worship leading career has been in smaller churches, and I have a heart for smaller churches, and that's why I started worship tutorials. It's because a lot of times in a smaller church you're dealing with limited resources, whether that's a budget, whether that's musicians, whether that's the skill level of the musicians. Everything is limited, and sometimes you feel like you have your hands tied. If you're a worship leader in a smaller church, like me, I was extremely part-time. I was paid, but not a lot. So you may be a volunteer, you may not get paid much, you probably have another job on the side. Or maybe you have a full-time job and you lead worship kind of on the side, but you feel it as your calling. That's how I felt. I had a job and I led worship very part-time, but I felt like if you'd asked me what I did, I was a worship leader. That's just what I felt like God was calling me to do and is calling me to do. So you have limited everything: time, money, talent, resource, whatever. And I feel like a lot of times in those churches, worship is not done well. And so I think there are simple things that you can do to really elevate the level of worship in a smaller church environment. And that is why worship tutorials exists. I want to equip you, whether you're in a small church with no budget or whether you're in a massive church with all kinds of budget. I believe the tools that we have, like the pads and the song resources, will be useful. I'm in a large church and we use the pads all the time. We send musicians to some of the songs that I have tutorials on so they can learn them. In a big church or a little church. And the things that I do, they're not expensive. A lot of what I want to provide it in a very cost-effective way. And I just have a heart to help churches, and particularly small churches though, because that's where a lot of ministry is happening. Most churches in America are small, are 70 some people. And I think worship can be done better, and I want to help you do it. So that's why I created worship tutorials. It's very close to my heart. And if there's anything I can do for you, please reach out to me, send me an email through the contact form, and I'd love to connect with you. So the next question comes from John Gunkel. He left a comment on the last YouTube video, and he asked me this: is it okay for a worship team member or a worship leader perhaps to play in bars or a secular venue and playing non-Christian music? And my answer is yeah, I think, but it depends. So I'll tell you a story too. Back when I was in Oklahoma, I was leading worship in a church, and I was also, like I said, I was a youth pastor, kind of did both roles sometimes. And I played music on the side. I was writing a lot of songs, and I was pursuing a music career, whatever that looks like or means. And so I would try to go play gigs wherever I could get them, play my original music, that kind of thing. And the original music I wrote was not necessarily worship songs, but it was certainly, based on my experience as a Christian. And so much of it faith-based, much of it biblical. So I would try and play places. I'd play anywhere. I'd play in coffee shops. I'd play. I never played in a bar, but what I did play is a casino a couple times. So in Oklahoma, there's a lot of casinos, and they pay well too. So I played a couple gigs in a casino, and I was really torn about that, but I kind of wrestled with that in my spirit, and I thought, is this something I should be doing? But I'm reminded, if you look at the life of Jesus in the Bible, look at the people he hung out with. He hung out with sinners, he hung out with prostitutes, he hung out with people that were despised by the church. In fact, the church leaders often pointed at Jesus and said, look at the people you hang out with. Why should we associate ourselves with you? And I think that that's a great example that tells us that it's okay for us to be in places where there are people that the church, maybe despises, maybe they disagree with. But I think that it's important to shine a light of truth into those places. And I don't mean going into a bar and standing on the bar with a Bible in your hand and saying you're all going to go to hell. That's not effective. What I do mean is I would go to this casino and I sang a song, I wrote called No Perfect Son, and it was about the story of the prodigal son. And it wasn't just overtly, the story of the prodigal son. It was, I tried to write it in a way that the themes of that scripture were written into the story of the song. And whether people got that or not, I don't know, but they heard the message. I wrote a song called Though I Walk Through the Valley, which is obviously Psalm 23, and I played that in the casino. And actually one time, I played there a couple times, and one time I had a guy come up to me and say that really meant a lot to him, that encouraged him. So you don't have to, I don't think that you need to go into a place like that and beat people over the head with the Bible, but I do think that it gives you an opportunity to shine a light into a dark place and offer hope to people who really need it. Now, the second part of this question was, he's not playing Christian music, and I think that's fine. I think music is art, and art tells a story. And if you're playing music that's not Christ honoring, then that's a different issue. I would ask you, John, what kind of music is the person playing? And I don't believe that all music that isn't labeled as Christian is bad. I think that there's lots of great music out there that's not Christian music. Because a lot of times musicians write songs Songwriters write songs based on their experience in life, and it's true. And that doesn't mean that it's bad. Certainly there is a lot of bad music out there that is not Christ-honoring, but just because it's not overtly talking about Jesus or the gospel doesn't mean that it's not Christ-honoring either, or that it's bad, in my opinion. So yeah, I don't think that it's a problem, but it really depends on what the person's heart is like when they go into an environment like that. What are they singing? How are they interacting with people? Now, I will say this: if you are a worship leader or you are in a band and the leadership of your church does not want you to do that, I do believe that it is right to submit to that leadership. It's good to have a conversation about it, but if church leadership says to you, "Hey, I don't want you going into a bar to play music," or they say to you as a worship leader, "I don't want your team going into bars," then I think that it's appropriate to submit to the leadership in your church. And if you don't agree with your church's leadership, then it might be time to find another church. But definitely have a conversation about that. Okay, so finally, I have been asked several times, and I'm sorry I don't have like the person's reference, but it's been a couple, at least multiple people ask me about what pickup do I have in my acoustic guitar. So I've talked about this guitar before on a frequently asked questions video. The first one, it's a Martin D35, and I used to have a K&K Pure Western pickup in it, and that sounded fine. It's a under-saddle transducer pickup. And I have recently swapped that out for an LR Baggs Anthem pickup, which you can see right there. So the Anthem has it's a dual source pickup. It has a piezo under-saddle pickup, which I typically don't like at all. And then it has a microphone pickup that is taped, actually, I think it's taped, onto the bottom underneath the bridge. So it's got a element right underneath the saddle here, and then it's got a microphone under the bridge. So it will pick up stuff when you play. But what I love about it is it sounds very natural. It sounds much more natural than the K&K did, which is a great pickup, by the way. But the Anthem sounds really good. And it allows you to blend the piezo with the microphone pickup. So you have a volume here, and then you have a blend knob here. And by default, there's a frequency below which all of the sound comes from the piezo. So it provides the bottom end, but the bulk of the sound comes from the microphone unless you blend it all the way out, and you can go anywhere in between. So it's a LR Baggs Anthem. This is the full version. They have an SL version, which is a little bit more streamlined. It doesn't give you as much control, but I love this pickup. It does not feed back, and we get some pretty loud volumes in our church, close to 100 dB. Hopefully not that loud, but 94, 95, 96, somewhere in there. And it doesn't feed back when I play it. So it's a great pickup for that, and I don't have to use that sound hole cover that I used to use in all my videos anymore. So the last few acoustic guitar videos were used, the guitar sound is from this pickup, and in future videos you'll be hearing it as well. So that's it, the LR Baggs Anthem pickup. Thank you guys so much for asking the questions. Please keep them coming. I have been experimenting with live streaming video to YouTube, and it works pretty well. So I may do some live Q&A events in the future, and there's like a chat window. You can just ask me your questions and I can answer them. That would be pretty cool, I think. So look out for that. If you want, you can subscribe to the mailing list, and I will be emailing out when those are going to be happening, and you can do that over at worshiptutorials.com. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.